So the Green Party was saying that they weren't going to build that many houses, but we've got Sian Berry now looking like they're going to back up Starmer. She's saying, yeah, she was protesting Starmer and protesting Charles and the monarchy at the Republic campaign. I actually voted Green because Carla Denyer said that they weren't going to build as many houses as Labour. And I don't think the Green Party were going to get the planning process changed to take away people's rights. But here, Sian Berry has put, it is unacceptable that it has become so wretchedly hard and even impossible to have a safe, affordable and warm place to call home. Well, I know that things are unaffordable now because even just nipping to the shop, if you happen to live near an expensive one, it's taking all your money off you. But that's the problem. Why had the Green Party in Sian Berry put a cap on profits and say no business or corporate entity can charge more than a certain amount of profit on items? Why not cap profits? And then when you go to the shop and come back, you've not spent it all on groceries because they're through the roof, right? What they're doing is they've made prices of everything extortionate. And that's actually costing people bills and things. But the thing is, a lot of the houses they've been building so far anyway, no people who need to have those houses have been able to afford them anyway. Most people are born or live in a house. Well, they're born in a hospital, but most people's parents have got a house. They're wanting people to move out of homes when they're younger and get their own houses and start families earlier. And I've spent my life travelling around this country in every different class you can think of, from the poorest parts to the richest parts. And the majority of... I've never been to a house, really, and I've been to every type you can think of where it has been to any of these descriptions that they're making out. Why weren't they saying these things, right, when Philip Schofield was in the broom cupboard on the BBC? They were selling it to everyone that you don't need a big house. You know, it's cool to have a small house, like have the broom cupboard like Philip Schofield. They've been selling it the fact that, you know, have the TARDIS, you know, the TARDIS is small, like it's cool, right? Now they've got a massive TARDIS with ridiculously massive space, but there's nothing in there. There's no in there. It was literally empty. It was just all walkways and corridors with nothing in there. They're wanting people to spend more money on building and build bigger things that aren't necessarily better or nicer, just for the sake of other people making profit out of it. And they're trying to make people think that they're not happy or satisfied with having regular sized things. That's the problem. And I think the Green Party are starting to fall for that pitch. Starmer cannot stop people from opposing housing building. It's not possible. He'd have to make it so there's absolutely no law at all. You can't tweak or change planning regulations. It's the fact that it's not lawful to build, right, without consent from a court, which means with the Court of Civil Request, it's the council. You've got to get permission from the council, which means you've got to make a case to the council, and any case is entitled to have an opposition. In law, any case made can have an opposition unless there's no case, right? But this is the thing with Court of Civil Requests, right? So Starmer's dancing around these points, right? The main news. I'll go by what the main news is saying, right? Because they've just announced it on the main news. There's 2 points, right? Firstly, whether or not people can or can't build, and then secondly, how they're going to build and what they're going to build, what it's going to be like, right? If he removes the law So you don't need consent to build, but the people can decide how or what they build. Then if the people don't come to a decision, right, then how can they build? How can anything be built if they actually decide, or if they can't come to a conclusion how it should be? Or if they keep constantly rejecting all of the plans and they're never satisfied with them? What if they just decide that they're never going to be satisfied with it and they keep rejecting it multiple times? Or, oh no, you can only have 3 changes of it, or 3 opposite. It at the end of the day, it's a case. I've just watched the Stonehenge case, right? And there's multiple points that the judges can decide or make decisions on, multiple things, not just one thing, right? Could be anything. Could be one of any point. Or at the end of the day, can the judges make the decision based on their conscience, just like a jury can? We're gonna have to start going into crime now with Starmer. I'm gonna start taking it into crime. It's criminal, right? Sadiq Khan, the Mayor of London, is operating a criminal, illegal congestion charge. It's criminal, illegal. Tony Blair made an illegal congestion charge, contravening legislation that says that he can't charge people in London. Or at least in the limit of London, which is in the centre of London, and that's where he started charging them. That's a crime. And the Mayor of London is carrying it on with you, Les. So immediately, the Labour Party, Tony Blair, Kier Starmer, and Sadiq Khan now are criminal. They're breaking the law. It's a breach of privileges because they didn't have the legal right to make the orders for any of those charge zones or instruments, because it says in law that they can't make they can't create those instruments in law. It's illegal, right? So we're already dealing with criminals. Now Keir Starmer is going to claim that he's going to lawfully change the law so it's not illegal. Well, it actually wasn't. A lot of these people who breached planning, right? A lot of them were just fined, or had to, the house wasn't valid. They had to take it down, or they were made to demolish it. They never got put in prison. So it's not like they were breaking the law. It's not like they went round and headbutted someone, or, stabbed them, or stole their car. I think with that crooked house in Staffordshire, or wherever it was, Birmingham, it might have actually been in Birmingham, they demolished it without permission, and I think the police were looking into the fact that they've got the intent to criminal. You could do them for criminal damage, but usually they only get a fine. We know people here who've built things they don't have permission to build, or build it differently, right? And they never got criminally prosecuted. They just got fined or were made to put it back, right? So they're not getting criminally prosecuted. But in a civil case, you don't necessarily need legislation. Look, right, with theft, right, if someone steals your things, right, you can have them prosecuted for theft, right? If someone has got your things, right, and you want them back, you can take them to civil court and say, he's got my money, or he sold me some shoes, but he never gave me the change back, or, he owes me money, right? That's a civil dispute, right? You've got to prove that he's got your things and that you own them, right? And that, he owes you money, but they're not going to be prosecuted criminally. I think with the family, when it comes to the family, I don't think you prosecute the other partner for having your things and stealing them, because you're considered as one entity. Like when you're married, your things are meant to be under the marriage partnership or whatever, and then when you separate, your things you decide who's who. But even if you're not married to someone, I'm not married to a shopkeeper, right? But, if he doesn't give me my change back, and, I could say that he stole it. You know, he shortchanged me theft, but I could just take him to civil court and you say, he didn't give me that money back. You know, it's on video camera, or I've got the receipt, or whatever evidence you've got. He's got the money that's mine, right? There's no. If you don't use the legislation, the crime, the offence, the intent to put you at a loss and make a gain, right? If you don't use the legislation, Starmer can get rid of the legislation for crime. But at the end of the day, right, you can say, that's my stuff. I prove ownership to a court with a receipt. Therefore, I want it back, the item, or I want to compensate him for it, right, in money. That's a civil case, right? You don't need any law, right? Notice if you're going to a civil court, right, yeah, so you don't have to have an offence for a crime. Starmer can stick his legislation where he wants, right? If you own something in ownership, right, and another person has got it, and you prove that that's yours, the court can say you've got to give him it back, right? That doesn't actually need to be based on a law, right? Because it's based on something called proof of ownership that everyone has. Everyone's got something, right, independent of law, right? And the civil procedure rules, you don't have any law. You go into civil procedure rules, you run anything through it, like a machine gun. You can run, whatever 9mm bullets through it, or rubber bullets. You can run what you want through it. You can run plastic bullets, rubber bullets, right? You can run whatever you want through it, right? It's a court proceeding. You run through it what you want, but you got overriding objectives. Anyone who owns something in this country, right, and has got proof that they own it, right, you don't need any legislation for anything other than the civil procedure rules, right? You walk into a court, right? Usually you'd have a jury in a civil court, right? You go into a court, right? You don't need any criminal offences, nothing, right? You go into a court, there's a judge there and a jury, right? You go into a court, right? You got witnesses. That is my handbag. I own it. Here's my receipt, right? The jury look at it. The jury don't even need to decide on a point of law by Magna Carta. And this is what the whole Defend Our Juries is on about now with Extinction Rebellion and Just Stop Oil, right? The jury's right. Based on the evidence, right? What is the evidence? Well, there are procedure rules for submitting and giving evidence, but at the end of the day, the evidence is something to convince a jury or judge, doesn't matter which, they've robbed us juries now. I will decide based on the evidence, right? That means you don't need a law. And this is what we're arguing about now with Extinction Rebellion and Defend Our Juries, right? You need nothing other than the evidence. There's a jury of 12 people there, right? Here's a receipt in my hand, right? I'll show you it. I bought an handbag on the 25th, right? I don't need any law, any offence, nothing, right? They're the jury. That's my handbag, right? This guy has got it. It's worth £12. I want the handbag back or £12. What do the jury think, right? If they believe me and my proof to them in the court, based on the evidence, or they can ignore the evidence and just decide whether they believe me by my oath, my statement, truth, and they can say, that's his, you're giving it back, right? What law? What law? What law? What law, Starmer? What law? None. None, Starmer. None. There's no law. No law. None other than Magna Carta and the civil procedure rules, Kier, right? And I'll tell you this, Kier, right? I am going criminal now with it. I'm going criminal. Jeff Bezos, right? Starmer, right? You can't win. You will not win. Because if you change those planning rules, we're going to take you to the cleaners with every law you can think of in this country, right? You cannot win. Because if Bezos buys a field, right, and the entire village come out, Kier, right, that is harassment, right? If Bezos's houses and building are distressing everyone in that village, right, they can walk straight into a magistrate's court or ask for a jury in a crown court, right? The entire village, right? And they can say under criminal law, that is harassment and we don't want it here. And he doesn't need to build them there. He wants to. He doesn't need to. Evidence of distress and harassment or anxiety caused by houses being built near a village, right? And the court can decide that he has to move them away, just like moving an aeroplane flight path, Kier, right? You want to get rid of the harassment law? You want to get rid of the public nuisance law? I think Extinction Rebellion will welcome that. I think Just Stop Oil will welcome that. Let's loosen up the harassment laws. Let's loosen up the nuisance laws. Kier, right? We are going to stop you building houses everywhere. No matter which way you want to take it, you can take it any way you want. We don't need a law. I don't need any planning rules. None. Don't need any planning rules. None. No planning rules are needed. When you walk into a court or walk into a council, all you need is for or against something, anything, right? That's all you need. And if you know, you can't do it because you're trying to make out that planning applications is not bringing a case. And if you don't need, even if you don't need to bring a case, right? This is the crux of it, right? It's based on the fact that the applicant is bringing a case. Oh, the applicant is bringing a case that he wants to make to the council to build them. Oh, he doesn't need to bring a case anymore because apparently there aren't any laws. He doesn't even need to submit any plans to the council because Kier's got rid of all the laws. Well, how about us? How about we bring the case? We're bringing a case against Bezos or Joe Bloggs or whoever who's got a suitcase of billions, right? Who wants to put us into oblivion. We're bringing the case. We're bringing the case, right? You can call it what you want. Harassment, nuisance, whatever. It's about time we started getting access to affordable law and not your rip-off judicial reviews that don't have a public jury anymore. I don't think people can actually... The Labour voters do not actually understand how perversely conservative this Labour Party now is. It's like Mog, Boris Johnson, Rishi Sunak, Liz Truss, Charles, all in one and Blair in one person in Starmer. Literally, he's like a mega Tory, a super mega conservative with vast, unsurmountable powers to do whatever he wants. Anthony Carr's asking for it now. This is more than the Tories could ever have dreamed of. It's like Rishi Sunak pretending, oh, we've been beaten. No, Sunak is nearly besieged by Starmer. Sunak can't believe the absolute unsurmountable power of Starmer beyond any Tory dream ever. The Tories wanted to change the planning regulations, but they didn't end up doing it because we complained about it, right? You can't do it. However Starmer works out that he's going to do it, I am going to work out a way to stop him, regardless of what law he makes, because in court, you don't need any law. And in a civil court, in criminal court, you need a law. If there's no law, the applicant doesn't need to go to the council to make a case. If Starmer abolishes the planning law, fair enough. They don't need to go to court to get permission. But by Ella's we have a right to a suit against anyone for anything, because when I've got a receipt that I bought something, what law? What law other than a jury agree that it's mine and that I bought it and that's the truth? What legislation? None. None. There's no law. There is no law. Starmer's law is like oxygen. It doesn't exist. And therefore, we don't need any planning regulations to stop people building. None. Because we will bring a case against the applicant because they are doing X, Y, or Z. Whether it is in law, criminal law, or a suit. Right? And we'll demand a jury. We'll demand a civil jury. We'll demand justice. Because you don't need any legislation other than the fact that the respondent is pissing everyone off. And if the jury don't need to base it on law, they don't even need to have broken any law. So there doesn't actually need to be any planning rules or regulation. The jury can actually, on their conscience, say that you can't build something. And I actually, because how do they even know whose land it is? At the end of the day, really pushed at the most, even if Bezos walks into a court and says, I own 15 acres of land, really? The jury could say, no, you don't. You don't own nothing. It's not yours. And they could say it belongs to the village. And then he'll be raising it up. He'll be appealing to the Supreme Court then, won't he? Then he'll be appealing to the Supreme Court. So, at the local level, you might think that's ridiculous, but I tell you what, I actually think that people aren't being creative enough with the law. We need to get some of these groups together, like Colchester Council Watch and that Rachel Eleanor Love and people like that, and Verbs and Neil Oliver. You can actually, these people are criminals. They've acquired, the only reason they've got money, vast excessive amounts of money, is because they've robbed everyone. The only reason people's houses haven't been repaired and kept and redecorated, and why Cyan Berry is saying they're not warm or whatever, even though Extinction Rebellion are going on about global warming all the time, but Cyan Berry here is talking about having a warm house. Extinction Rebellion are talking about going on heat strikes soon when it gets too hot. It's because they've been robbed blind by all these companies who are charging insane, ridiculous amounts of money, and they haven't made a law to make it illegal to charge ridiculous amounts of money for things. Trump. Something needs to be done. It's disappointing that the Green Party, and if the Lib Dems are going to support this new Labour law, because it's literally like Rishi Sunak has won the lottery. You know, what more could you want if you were Bill Gates or, Jeff Bezos, than not even having to get permission to literally build anything? Bill Gates is buying up land all around the planet, all around the earth. That means he'll be able to literally do what he wants without any permissions required of anything. If you think Kier Starmer is representing the working class or the working person, then you are severely deluded. And all of this staff, all these post office women looking chancellors of the exchequer, all these literally like, the face of the Welsh government, they are seduced. They're seduced into pure greed. It's not about not having houses or having warmth. It's about being seduced into gross excess. In a way, like the Tory Conservatives, is a conservatory warm with glass. People don't want to sleep in a conservatory, but the Tories were getting everyone to do it. The Tories convinced everyone that, why would you like to have a conservatory? If you've got a garden, obviously people don't have gardens. Why didn't they, seeing those city lights blocking streets off, why didn't they narrow all the streets where the terrace houses were and get everyone there to have, a conservatory? That wouldn't make the house warmer. You lose heat through a conservatory. The thing with the current trend is that now the TV and adverts and the media are pushing this narrative that no one's got anything. Everyone's poor. No one even he's got a house. What a lot of tosh. I've been in houses from Land's End to Johnny Groats in every single different type of street you can imagine. And then it's not bad. It isn't bad. I don't know who's pitching this thing that England doesn't have nice houses or warm houses. If people can't afford bills at the moment, fair enough. That is the extortionate shops. Why aren't people protesting about the prices of food? You'd have thought that people would be protesting outside the supermarkets, outside Tesco's, outside Sainsbury's, outside the gas stations at extortionate prices and, make the government put a cap on it. That'd shut Rishi Sunak up and Boris Johnson, but they seem to be cheering it along, almost like throwing their money at them and then complaining they can't pay their bills. I don't know what the Lib Dems and Green Party are thinking. There's something seriously wrong with Kier Starmer. He is not Labour Party. He does not represent one working class person in this country. He represents Jeff Bezos, Bill Gates, Rishi Sunak, Donald Trump, and every thief and criminal who are stealing from the public in this country, and now he wants them to have unlimited power. He's meant to be a human rights lawyer. He doesn't believe in juries. He doesn't really believe in petitioner rights. He doesn't believe in human rights. He believes in this new Davos and supreme power of the elite. Doesn't believe in peers making a decision unless they're voting Labour. And Labour didn't actually thrash everyone. Reform UK got a lot of votes, but they didn't translate into seats. That's to do with the voting system and an organisation. Starmer has not wiped the floor with the country, and he doesn't have everyone worshipping the Labour Party. That is for sure. He's got no right to take away people's right to object to building when really, when it comes down to it, in a court of civil request, whether or not it's a bunch of councillors or a jury or not, at the end of the day, you don't need a law. You actually don't need a law. All you need is evidence that a party is suffering from another party and a jury can decide in favour of one party or another based on some evidence that shows that what they've claimed is true. You don't need a law. Maybe in a criminal court you need a law to get it listed because you've got to have a charge to get there. But in civil court, you don't. In civil court, when you go on that small claims court, I don't need one charge. I don't need one charge, one legislative line of legislation. You enter a number in. How much? What is the damage? What is the damage to our country from Starmer? What is it going to be? Enter the number. What is the damage to our wallets from Sunak? What is the damage to our wallets from Trump? What is the damage to our wallets from Jeff Bezos? What is the number? Enter the number. What legislation? What are the grounds for this charge? The grounds for this charge are £350.64p. Those are the grounds. It's a number. Enter the number. Enter the number. What is the anxiety level of stress or misery from this village at the prospects of Jeff Bezos buying 100 acres of land and plonking 10,000 domes on it? What is the anxiety level, right, to that village? That is a line of legislation. No numbers. That is a line of law. Harassment. These people are being harassed by the applicant, right? I get that through a magistrate's court. I don't need the Attorney General of England to do it. Any competent lawyer can get that through a magistrate's court. Don't have to be a Crown prosecutor either. Whatever way Starmer goes with this planning application, I am going to stop him while I am living and breathing on this planet. Starmer will not build berserk in England while I am alive on this planet. So help me God!